I've titled this "How to Beat the System When Everything is Rigged," and my personal belief is that self-reliance is the primary tool, if you will, or offensive strategy that you need to deploy in order to protect yourself, your family, and so forth. That you can't rely on anybody else, and that there are a lot of forces out there that are out to get you in a very real way. So let me see if I can explain what I mean by that. So once again, the title: How to Beat the System When Everything is Rigged. Now, we've heard this phrase, working the system, and it's got both positive and negative connotation. But my intent more than anything else is to shine a bright light, if you will, on both sides of the fence. Talk about the good, the bad, the indifference, how things are set up, and how they work. Now, let me put a few things in context which may be helpful. At this stage of my career, I'm in the latter part of my 50s at this point in time, and I've worked with several hundred different sectors. And I have worked with politicians, with athletes, big business and small, with rollouts that have to do with TV programs and a variety of other things. I've worked in the healthcare system, the banking system. I've worked with again, as I mentioned before, with politicians. I've worked inside the food industry. I've also worked inside and helped government in many different ways, especially military. So I have an understanding in terms of that mentality and so forth. So in many ways, I'm speaking with first-hand experience. But let me kind of go through here. My objective is to show you how many of society's current systems, how they're being used to work you over, and I mean to pummel you and I to death, as well as provide you with a system with really a solid game plan that you can use to work to your advantage. And I'll get to that as we get to the end of this program, and that's really what I intend to do. But again, please take some notes if you could. I think you're going to want to refer to them. Okay, so let's just kind of wake up and smell the reality. The truth of the matter is the deck is stacked. Everything that you could possibly imagine that's around you is rigged. And in my opinion, they are out to get you. They're out to get your peace of mind. They're out to get your money. They're out to limit your education. They're out to skew your bias in terms of how you think, how you behave. They're out to set limitations in terms of what you believe about yourself, about your future, and so forth. And we see the consequences of propaganda even well before this whole, I even hate to use the word pandemic, this whole big farce, quite frankly, that is the way I refer to it. But so what am I talking about? I'm talking about, a number of systems and industries that are rigged to cheat you, to suppress you, to control you, to manipulate you, to ultimately discard you once you're of no further value, especially when you have nothing to gain, if you will, from the standpoint, especially relating towards money. So let's focus in for just a moment, and we'll start off with the healthcare system. Now, the healthcare system is all about making money at your expense, whether you like it, lump it, or whatever the case might be. I mean, this was deregulated, and you go back and you sit back and you say, where did things change? Well, this goes back basically to the Nixon era, and how healthcare was deregulated, and it basically went from a government-controlled type thing where expenses were kept in check and people were at a certain salary and so on and so forth, and it was turned over under the guise that this system will make it much more competitive and so forth. But the reality is that the current healthcare system is a complete joke, because the system is intentionally engineered to get you sick, to get you addicted, to break you financially. So let's talk about the fundamental premise of a business. The purpose of a business really, to me, is to create a customer, and they certainly want to be able to do that. And you create a customer by, overfeeding them, making them sick, stressed out, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of ways with which a client, if you will, is created in the healthcare system, and it is done primarily through manipulative means. That being said, the only long-term interest you need to understand is that one of the key metrics of a business is, lifetime value, long-term loyalty, if you will, or long-term addiction to a system, a product, a process, or whatever the case might be, in this case to a drug or anything along that way. But these guys really, it's not the healthcare system. They're not interested in you getting healthy. There have been cures for cancer and for a lot of different diseases that have been quite frankly, hidden in trademarks and everything have basically been been bought up and suppressed for the simple reason that they're not looking for cures. They're not interested in cures. They're interested in perpetuating pain, not in solving it. And that's the God's honest truth. But there's no long-term financial interest. I just want you to think about this in converting sickness or addiction into health and well-being. Now, I've told you about the 100-day challenge and said that the ultimate objective is to create fast conversions. You want to be able to convert a problem into a solution quickly. You want to be able to convert, bad health into good health quickly. You want to be able to convert a problem into a solution. You want to do it as quickly as possible because the benefits of it are extraordinary of doing so rather than perpetuating pain. Well, the whole system is based on that. There's a huge financial upside to perpetuating sickness, pain, addiction for as long as they possibly can, and they're pretty darn good at it. And I think we've seen enough of those examples and so forth. So let me continue on here with a little bit more information. Rather than simplify and focus on both efficiency and effectiveness, you try and call in your healthcare system and getting a quick answer. The system's intentionally designed to be complex, to be confusing, be manipulative, and right out of the gate, the first thing they're going to do, especially if it's of a big expense, is they're going to tell you it can't be done. They're going to deny your ability to process it. It is done intentionally. The entire system is rigged. It's a breeding ground for adversarial behavior in relationships rather than collaborative relationships, as good claims are intentionally designed and patients are forced to fight for the care that they pay for. That is the way it's set up. Pharmaceutical and health insurance companies invested billions of dollars of powerful lobbyist groups to work the systems in order to buy politicians. And there, quite frankly, at this point in time, there are over 14,000 politicians, or should we say lobbyists, that work for the industry, if you will, and a handful of lobbyist groups. But they're designed to work the system to buy politicians, to manipulate the media, to deceive the public, and along the way, they fine-tune their true competency. And if you take the time to think about it, if you want to know what the real true competency of our country, I'm talking U.S. primarily, but this goes worldwide, it's marketing. It's everything has come down to a very slick, sophisticated marketing campaign with names of drugs. You have no idea what the heck they mean. They have no meaning. But here's the thing that comes out of it. Doctors are miserable. They're tired of dealing with paperwork and everything else. They're constantly dealing with skyrocketing malpractice insurance rates. Patients are overwhelmed. They're underappreciated. And they're little more than pawns in a giant shell game. And the executives, well, guess what these sons of bitches do? They basically reap huge financial rewards. And if you're unsure, if you think I'm being cynical or sarcastic or anything along this way, just take the time and look at Excelis, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and look at all of these different companies and so forth, and look at the massive financial bonuses that each one of these guys can. You can't tell me that they can't find a way to make the process simpler and to spread the wealth a little bit. It's beyond. It's beyond just common sense. It's just evil perpetuated and demonstrated, quite frankly. To be very frank, it is very simple. It is very, very simple to make a process efficient, to make it easy, okay? And it is intentional. These systems are designed, they're intentionally designed. It is a premeditated act the way many of these things are set up at this point in time. Now, I'm going to move from here, and I could speak for hours just on the healthcare system. But and by the way, we're talking to a guy who, with his family and so on and so forth, because of the money I make, I pay more for this, and my mortgage is paid off. But I pay $2,400 a month for health insurance, and then I get slammed every time I want to use it. I get hit with co-pays and so on and so forth. And anytime I have to have whether it's a surgery or somebody gets hurt, we've got to go through the shenanigans all over again. It is just a flippant disgrace. It really is. The banking system is the next beauty. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend everybody download an ebook. This ebook basically the title of it is called Billions for Bankers. I want you to take a few minutes. I want you to find it online. You'll find it very quickly. But what you're looking for is the PDF. You want to download it, and I'm going to give you the name of the person who wrote it. It's Pastor Sheldon Emery. Pastor Sheldon Emery. This was written back in the 50s. And it is so appropriate for what's going on today. It was brilliantly written from a man who was not afraid. And but here's the deal, and I'll kind of lay some of this out for you. The banking system is just one giant shell game. It's a giant scam. The value of your money, interest rates for loans, availability for jobs, the rate of home foreclosures, all of this is decided by a small group of elite bankers who run the Federal Reserve. And I want to be real clear on this. We're talking just a handful of people. You can count them on less than two hands in terms of how the entire banking and global system is actually controlled and manipulated. Contrary to common belief, the Federal Reserve, and I know some of you during this whole pandemic have probably done a little bit of research. I've known this for quite some time, and I had to sit down and educate my kids and explain to them how the system is set up. And, I asked them some open-ended questions. Who do you think runs it? Why do you think they named it this way? And so on and so forth. But once again, contrary to common belief, the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the U.S., is not a government agency. It has nothing to do with the U.S. government at all. It's a privately owned, privately operated, 100% controlled by bankers and a few wealthy families. And again, you can count them all on less than two hands. It's operated for the financial gains of the bankers over the people. I want to make sure you understand this. It is operated for the financial gain of the bankers over the people rather than for the good of the people. The word federal was used only to deceive people. Like so many things in life, the way that it is done, it was a marketing campaign. It was used to deceive people. Now, there's so much emphasis, and I am not knocking Black Lives Matter and all the looting and stuff that's going on, but these miserable rat bastards have been looting the entire economy for decades, for 60, 70 years at this point in time. And if you go back and even look at the European, it goes back even longer. It's a scam. It's a bloody scam. And they have been looting and pilfering and leaving you and I with crumbs. So the question is, how did this happen? What are they going to, let me just kind of give you the cliff notes in terms of the Federal Reserve and the reality. This is the stuff that they don't teach you in school that's always hidden. And by the way, I'll touch on the educational system, but the educational system is one big scam as well, because you're not learning the truth. You're learning history based on the way somebody wants it to be perceived, and stories are created accordingly. Well, here's the great story that most people don't know anything about. Woodrow Wilson was selected, and I mean selected, okay, as the 28th President of the United States in 1913. He beat the incumbent, William Howard Taft, who had vowed to veto legislation in order to establish a central bank. He went public with that. So he said, there's no way this is going to happen. And listen, our forefathers, if you go back and read the Constitution, they understood the impact of a central bank and with the way they had it set up initially. Now, the previous year, here's the way this thing went down. Wilson met with a small group of wealthy bankers who presented him with an offer that he couldn't refuse. This took place, and you could do a little research about Jekyll Island, okay? So if you want a little bit of history, and for those of you who live in that area, you've heard the story, but check out the story of Jekyll Island. Wilson swore in secret that in exchange for political and financial support of the Rockefeller and Morgan bankers, so these are two of the families, quite frankly, who are in on this, okay? He would support the bankers' Federal Reserve scam, and he would push for the first ever progressive income tax on the American people. And he did this in order to get voted. He sold his soul. And as far as I'm concerned, Woodrow Wilson should have been literally tarred and feathered. But once elected, Wilson obeyed his dark master, and he enacted unprecedented changes to the United States Constitution. This is where everything went down the slippery slope. So what do we got here? Well, let me take a drink for just a second. Back to my notes. So in order to make, here's the way this thing happened. In order to make make this act binding, I'm not talking about this act binding, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve Act, and appear legitimate. Once again, it was marketed, if you will. Wilson, he pushed through Congress two congressional amendments, the 16th and the 17th Amendment. Again, I want you to do your own research, come to your own conclusion, but this is where the brunt of most of our problems lie. These two amendments remain in our Constitution like a friggin' cancer. They destroy this once healthy body of our great nation. The year 1913 stands as the year that America, and as far as I'm concerned, the world changed forever, and it was a seminal year in the Federal Reserve history. Now, Wilson knew, because he wrote later on, Wilson knew what he was doing was wrong. Wait till I tell you exactly what he wrote in his memoirs, okay? After serving the dark forces, all right, his dark masters, after he danced with the devils, he would write in his own personal diary, and I am quoting, this is not a word of this is made up. I am a most unhappy man. I have unwillingly ruined my country. A great institutional nation is controlled by its system of credit. All of our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. That's what he did. He did this to get voted or to get elected. Now, I'm going to mosey on now and touch on the political system. Now, again, I'm doing a cursory overview of each one of these things, but there's a lot to be said here. The political system is fueled by one thing, and it's institutionalized bribery. It is a crock of shit the way the current system is set up. Our government is no longer by the people, for the people. Our government is a series of powerful lobbyists, corporations, and wealthy people with deep pockets. And these people with deep pockets, they exert a large degree of control over those in office, and they drown out the voices of all other citizens. And that is the reality of it. You can disagree, and I'm totally fine with that. I just want to just provide you with some perspective and some things to consider as we go through this. It's highly questionable if anyone can view America or any other country, quite frankly, as a true democracy. The political system has taken a turn down elitist lane and we've become a country and, quite frankly, we've become a world led by a small dominant class of people comprised of powerful members. I hate even calling these the words elite, but economic superpowers, quite frankly, because I don't think they're elite. I think they're about as rotten as you could possibly get from a human being standpoint. But we've used the word economic elite so much. But these people exert total control of the general population, and this is what you would basically call a true oligarchy. That is exactly what our system is set up as. Politicians now represent the rich and the powerful. They do not represent their constituents. Policies are formed more by corporations. Policies are formed by special interest groups more than politicians. More than the politicians who were elected to represent the will of the general people. It's just, again, it's a scam. It is a mirage. It is just it's a diversionary technique in terms of what we see. Sadly, money has become the criteria for who makes it as an elected official. And I'll tell you, one of the best things that they could do, especially here in the U.S., they could basically reinstitute term limits, because we don't need career politicians. People are rewarded not for their ability to govern, but by their ability to fundraise. I will repeat that. People are rewarded not by their ability to govern, but they are rewarded in order to stay in place, to get all the perks, the benefits, and and everything that comes along with it. But by their ability to fundraise. Now, these people are serve one term, you've got a pension for life. Serve one term, you've got the best health care in the world for life. Serve one term, you are set for life. And again, they voted this for themselves, but you and I, we're settled with crumbs. Instead of listening to the people, they pander to you. They pander to you and I, but more importantly, they lay down and they obey their multinational corporations and their dark masters. This creates an environment where policy is not shaped by the needs of the people, but by the corporations who fund our representatives. And once again, I want you to do your research and make sure you're comfortable with this as we go through. We now live in an age, and this is it. I'll close with this last line on this section and move on to the food system. But we live in a world where huge multinational corporations can effectively make unlimited donations to campaigns through super PACs. And these super PACs do not have to report the source of their funds. That to me is just mind-boggling. And as mentioned before, I'll just make it real simple. Our political system is summarized in two words: institutionalized bribery. Like it, lump it, that's exactly what it is. Let's get over to the food system, which is a view. And by the way, for those of you who have gone far enough in the program, there's a module in the 100-day challenge, which is simply titled "Shape Up," and that talks about my experience and learning about the food system from working with a number of these different companies, but even more importantly, just getting a good, solid understanding as to how things are kind of put in place. Let me go here. Okay, so what do we got? I just dropped my paper, so I apologize. Okay, now, the food system itself. I have a tendency of speaking in threes, so I'll give it to you in threes. It is unhealthy, it's unsustainable, and it is completely unethical. I repeat, the food system is unhealthy, it's unsustainable, and it's completely unethical. We all know we are what we eat, and what we eat is rapidly becoming determined by one company. That company is Monsanto. More of the problems in the food system stem from one giant problem, and that giant problem is this. It's concentration of power, concentration of land, concentration of wealth, and concentration of political influence in the hands of a few large players, once again, predominantly Monsanto, who have gamed the system. And I assure you, every one of these systems that I spoke to you about is rigged. It is rigged just like going to Vegas, where the dice is loaded, where you lose a large percentage of the time. They give you a measly win from time to time, okay, to give you some false hope. But essentially where you lose and they win the majority of the time. The food system is exactly like that. And what these guys have done with farming in this country and around the world is just a shame. It really is. But as I mentioned, concentration of power, land, wealth, political influence, are just a small players, and Monsanto being the biggest one. But let me walk you through this, and I personally call this a dictatorship. Monsanto's seed and food dictatorship is based on corrupting regulatory processes by lobbying politicians. What they do is they lobby politicians to oppose health reforms, to manipulate science, to create their own bullshit research findings, which are not true, and we found plenty of those which have been lying for years. They destroy farmland and they deceive the public. There's a well-documented, and you could see this in a number of industries, especially when you start looking at war and a whole host of different things, but there's a well-documented revolving door between Monsanto employees and officials of the U.S. government, regulatory bodies, particularly the Food and Drug Administration. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, and this I didn't have a chance to do as much digging into it as I want, but the retired president and executive VP, and actually at one point in time the CEO of Monsanto ran the FDA, which is just criminal. This has effectively enabled Monsanto to bypass, and I mean, you talk about working the system, they bypassed the regulatory process, they manipulated it, and they get marketing consent in the U.S. for their products and technologies with minimal safety checks. And I mean minimal safety checks. What they're able to get away with is astonishing. Now, let's just kind of go into the marketing aspect of it just to reinforce this piece. Through aggressive marketing of ultra-processed food, which is just shit, and drink, which contain obscene amounts of sugar, multinational companies are now major drivers of the world's growing epidemic. And I repeat, multinational companies, especially, you start looking at Coke and Pepsi and all of these, which, you know, try to put on a big face and a big smile and so forth. But they're major drivers of the world's growing epidemic of chronic diseases such as heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and they don't give a shit. The world's food system is rigged. It's dangerously out of control, and without a radical overhaul, you, I, our kids, everything, okay, we're going to pay for it with our lives, and that's just the reality. This is why I continually reinforce the best thing that you and I can do is to play a strong offense. Wake up, pay attention, and realize that the system truly is rigged. At just the reality of it. And this is why I continue to call out for self-reliance, self-sufficiency, for self-education, and don't allow yourself to be manipulated. Don't believe a damn word that you read coming from any one of these press releases or out of the mouth of a politician. Just don't. It's not worth your time. The tax system, let's go there. It's hopelessly complex, and it's virtually impossible to understand. You start to go in and start looking at now some of the things that have gone on. I go on this, but I'll cut to the chase on this. Nothing tilts the playing field in favor of big corporations and a wealthy economic elite like the Irs Tax Code. The tax code is excessively and even bizarrely complicated. It makes no sense. These complications create unnecessary inefficiencies. They add vast transactional costs to the system. They slow everything down, which imposes every other cost, and they actually work to increase the rate of error. They really do. Now, to make this real simple, remember I said it doesn't take long in order to make a system efficient. Just make somebody needs to wake up, grow a pair, and basically put down some tough love on the system. Well, you know, we went into Iraq And that's a whole conversation on a much deeper subject as well. But let me just talk about the tax code there. Make it real simple. We went in, basically rebuilt from what we have said, but we implemented a very simple tax code. A flat tax, which basically was pushed by Steve Forbes, I don't know, 35, 40 years ago, basically, and he was laughed at. And he said, listen, a flat tax based on income at this level, that level, you take the calculator, you write down 15 or 18%, you send a check to the government. Make it pretty darn easy to understand. Well, that's what we do once we go in and invade a country and put these simple systems in place. Why can't we do it here? It blows my friggin' mind. I have no idea. But again, these systems they create unnecessary inefficiencies. They are designed to be complex, and they are manipulated in favor of big corporations and the wealthy economic elite who know how to work the system. It's just the way that it goes. And if there were ever a compelling reason concerning fairness for such complexity, that would be one thing. But there isn't such a reason. It's actually quite the opposite. The complexity of the system only advantages those who can afford to hire the expensive lawyers, lobbyists, the accountants to navigate and exploit the loopholes. Invariably, it's corporate in nature, the economics elite who can afford these type of shenanigans. But intentionally distorting the tax system is one of the key ways that our government operates, that the system operates. And in the U.S. today, and that's all I could really speak to, there's simply no question that the tax system has been suborned to serve the interest of just a small number of people. Now, the big question that we need to ask, and I really, excuse me, I just want to make sure this tape, everything is being recorded. Yeah, we're in good shape here. All right. An error had popped up, but the big question, as I mentioned before, why don't politicians just simply change the system for the better? And here's the answer. It's very simple. Their self-interest precluded. Even more tragically, there's one gloomy consequence of a convoluted tax system, and here it is. It makes citizens distrustful of the government and less likely to support measures that might actually make things better. It sounds very strange, but that's a God's honest truth. So now let's go over to the media, which is a beaut. And again, I think a lot of people have been educated in terms of how the media works and the nonsense they've been sold over the last couple of months and years and everything else that's basically kind of come on. But here's the deal. The news and media systematically work to control what you watch. They work to shape your opinion. They work to advance the agenda of what is basically called the CFR, which is the Council for Foreign Relations. Let me tell you a little bit about this, okay? The Council for Foreign Relations, this is something you'd be wise to do some research on to see who founded these organizations, by whom, and how they operate. So let me give you a little education here. We're talking, again, the Council for Foreign Relations, the promotional arm of the ruling elite. Sounds like a cute little name and so on and so forth, okay? Now, these people happen to own controlling interests in every single major media outlet. Now, most influential politicians, academia, and media personalities, they're all card-carrying members. They're all part of the system. They have to be in order to get those jobs. It uses its influence to infiltrate society and to manipulate people's views. Its experts, as we call experts, systematically write scholarly pieces. And this is why I said even from the healthcare industry, and we'll talk about science in just a minute as well, they write these scholarly pieces which are used in decision-making to justify for politicians and to manipulate the general public as to, well, 4 out of 5 dentists, or this one said that, or whatever the case. And people believe it because it sounds like an authoritative name or what have you, but it's all nonsense. But again, its experts systematically write scholarly pieces used in decision-making, and the media members are nothing more than the puppets. They're friggin' high-paid puppets in expensive suits who disseminate their message. One of the current highly popular agenda items, as we've heard for a few years now, and this is going to be a touchy subject, is global warming. But I promise you, in the last couple of weeks, maybe since this whole pandemic has started, you have not heard a word on global warming. Not a word. All right. We're going to get into the justice system in just a minute as well. It humors me that friends of mine, I'm fortunate my business is online, but people can't open their businesses, but they're given full permission to go out and loot. Nothing makes sense. Let the criminals out and so forth. Okay, let's keep going on. The major media conglomerates are all members of the CFR, as I mentioned. This precludes any of its members from accurately and honestly reporting news because they're told what to do. And by the way, all these guys read from a teleprompter. None of these people are reporters. They give them those titles. They don't report on squat. They don't report on anything. They're sanctimonious SOBs who read from a teleprompter. And they have sworn their allegiance, okay, to the CFR and its agenda. Now, the Council for Foreign Relations bills itself as an American, I'm going to read this. This is their mission, as an American nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization, publisher, and think tank specializing in U.S. foreign policy and internal affairs. But I promise you this. Once you do your homework, you'll quickly recognize the creepy and disgusting role that these people play in your everyday life. You'll most likely be turning off your TV, canceling your subscriptions, and start doing some serious critical thinking. And that is the big issue. So let me stop there for just a moment. One of the lessons inside the 100-Day Challenge is simply titled Think. And the reason it's there is because most people don't think. They just accept what is given to them. And that's the part. And then they have confirmation bias because they only get it from one vehicle. For those, some are addicted to Fox, some are addicted to CNN, some are addicted to New York Times or what have you. And I could break down each one of those for you. But fundamentally, you will, if that's your diet of choice from an intake, you will have your bias confirmed day in and day out as to this person, this policy, that policy, or whatever the case might be, because that's your intake. But let me just continue on. This is exactly what the ruling elite don't want. They don't want an informed and educated public. And I want to repeat this. The ruling elite do not want an informed and educated public. They will keep you broke. They will dumb you down. They will entertain you. They will destroy your kids' minds with jewel pens, with these bullshit games, media games, and so forth. You should just be cold turkey as far as I'm concerned, okay? Your kids should be reading. You should be educating them. As far as I'm concerned, all the real schooling goes on after school. But playing Fortnite and TikTok on their videos, and these clowns, the Kardashians and Bruce Jenner's deciding to change from a man to a woman. This is nonsense. This is diversionary crap. It is just pure sugar water, and people consume it by the masses. We're just a bunch of easily manipulated. People sit back and say, how on earth did we shut this thing down? How is the people are so easily controlled? They've been controlled for years. This is just on a grander scale. It is astonishing to me. And they're the last people to wake up and realize that they've been manipulated into this. Let me touch on a few other things. Let me touch on the justice system. This is ridiculously rigged. And as we've seen, you've got a man, whether in Maryland or Minneapolis or wherever, trying to open up a barber shop and gets arrested, a woman who opens up a hair salon and gets arrested in Dallas, yet people are allowed to go out and throw bricks through your windows and so forth, and they're allowed to burn down your city, and there's no consequence for it. To say that that things are unjust and that this is not rigged and contrived is foolish. Oh God! How do you what do you say to a person whose son or daughter was just killed by a prisoner who was let out of jail because they were afraid that they were going to get COVID-19 or whatever that is? That's a whole other conversation itself. But the criminals run free. The innocent get prosecuted, and people pay some very, very real prices for this. The system is screwed up in such a big way. It really is. Now, science. We'll touch on science and even war for just a minute, and I'll get into the solution. Science is manipulated. It's largely rigged. Science journals are all dominated by Big Pharma, and I repeat, science journals are all dominated by Big Pharma because they advertise money. They pay for those ads. They basically write those junkets. They pay all of these people off. And nearly all the so-called science you see in the news anymore is just a regurgitation of fabricated research from corporate science whores. And I repeat, corporate science whores. Just the same way. And if we've got, you got, some of these lawyers that work inside some of these big corporations and the games that they play and so forth, just whores for their dark masters. They have sold their integrity. They have literally sold their souls for a friggin' paycheck. And much of the effort behind science today is spent reinforcing a monopoly over medicine by pushing deadly vaccines, a whole host of bad science, while disparaging healthy plants, nutrients, what's good for the body, soul, and everything else. It just blows my mind. But government regulators are completely rigged. They're paid for and paid off. Right now, and again, you could do any of the research and so forth, but Big Pharma they're not even the pharmaceutical business anymore. This is where I go back to what I said at the very beginning. The core competency of these United States, and I would venture to say probably globally, because most of this stuff does come out of the U.S., our core competency is marketing. Marketing crap food, crap education, crap entertainment, crap drugs, and all of this type of stuff. And Big Pharma, once again, they have very, very, a small amount of money that goes into R&D. They'd much rather wait for smaller companies to create breakthrough drugs, buy them up, shut them down, or find ways to distort them in some way, shape, or form. But most of the new drugs, if anything, that comes out on the market nowadays are designed by the small firms, and they're just gobbled up by these large ones. And that's the game that they play straight on out. And they're more interested. And this even goes back to, you start to look at so many different areas. If you want to look, there's a documentary on Teflon and the impact that it's had on people's lives. And everybody in this world has a certain amount of that component in their body. But let me touch on this and move on to war and just discuss that for just a moment, because this I do have an understanding of. What you'll find is that each one of these things are largely paid off, and it's a complete joke. It really is. But even war is completely rigged. Wars are started with false flag attacks engineered by some kind of imperialist nation or what have you. All the reporting on war is completely censored to shield the American public from the truth of how really horrifying it is, or what on earth is going on, or what the intentions or motives behind it. The entire experience is sanitized, processed, homogenized, just like processed cow's milk that you and I are, that some of us are drinking. I'm not, okay? That's pretty much what this stuff kind of comes down to. The fact is, you have to sit back and ask yourself, and I guess this is what I'm leading up to and why I feel so fervently on this issue relating towards self-reliance. How do you beat a rigged system? Just stop and ask yourself that question. That should be the question that you should be having with yourself, with your spouse, with your kids, with your employees, with your supply chain. How do you beat a rigged system? And the answer is simple. You can't. That's why it's rigged, to make sure that you lose. Now, again, I want to reinforce this. The system is rigged to make sure that you lose. The system is rigged to make sure that you stay in debt. Now, let me just speak to that for just a moment. I've got a house right on Clearwater Beach, and I tell you, every year, these rat bags from Bank of America and Wells Fargo and everywhere else, and I see it happen on the beach just outside my window, and I see it all over the place, where these young kids come down, they don't have a credit card, they've never been in debt, don't do anything else, and they sign them up for easy credit. And they sponsor all of the parties. You look down on the beach on Frenchies and everywhere else, and it's all one big thing. And the same thing goes on in Miami and Mexico and so on and so forth. And by the time these kids leave, they've rung up $500 in debt, and they become a customer for life. Now all of a sudden the bill comes in and they've got no money. They're embarrassed to tell their parents, and they wind up leaving there with destroyed credit and so on and so forth. The system is rigged. It's sleazy. But again, I want to repeat this. The system is rigged to make sure that you lose. The system is rigged to make sure that you stay in debt. These high interest payments, man, if you bounce a check at $40 each or something, so you are just completely always behind the eight ball. The system's rigged so that you eat lousy food, the crap that they put in it. The system is rigged so that you're fat. The system is rigged so that you feel stressed out in terms of your job, and you read all the media in terms of what's going on. Stay in. More people are going to die. You've got to wear a mask. I mean, it is just to make you fearful. The system is rigged to make you confused, The system is rigged to make you feel overwhelmed. The system is rigged to make you stay uneducated. The system is rigged to steal your freedoms. And if you do not believe it, I got news for you, man. You are asleep at the switch. The system is rigged in every single way possible. And for a growing number of people, the system is rigged to basically give people handouts. So the next thing is just that, is universal basic income to give people money, more money for not even going to work. If there's a worse thing that you can do to a human being, it is to rob them of ambition. It is amazing. So let's ask the question a different way. With the deck stacked in someone else's favor and all the systems rigged against you, how do you stand a chance of getting ahead? What on earth can you do for yourself, for your future, for your family, so you don't allow yourself to get manipulated by outside parties, taken advantage of, and quite frankly left as a carcass where you're in debtor's prison the rest of your life? And the answer is very simple. It's twofold. Number one, stop playing the game. Better yet, refuse to play the game at all. Just flip the freaking game the bird. Stop playing. And then number two is to start playing a strong offense. And you do that by becoming fully self-sufficient. You become self-reliant. Now, I've talked about self-reliance. It's in there. I'm going to run through these things just because of the time frame. But self-reliance is not to be looked at as anti-society. It is not to be looked at as anti-community. It is to be looked at as being an advocate for self-reliance as a starting point, as a means for being a fully responsible human being, that you can stand on your own 2 feet, not be dependent on some outside party. Self-reliance is about freedom. Self-reliance is about freedom from the control or influence of outside people. It's freedom from the manipulation of outside institutions. And it's a simple concept that encourages each one of us to take responsibility for everything in our life: physical, emotional, spiritual, our food intake, social, economic, educational, and so on and so forth, and not just to accept what is thrown your way. And by the way, I didn't even get into the educational system before with this core curriculum, which is a crock of shit as well. But to put it more directly, it's an understanding that no one owes you anything. And the fact is, the world needs strong men and women who can think for themselves, who will not allow themselves to be manipulated. The world needs vibrant, self-reliant families, but even more importantly, and let me bottom line this for you, for those of you who have kids, the world needs self-reliant young men and women who can outthink the crap that they have been fed. And the longer this goes on, and the more that you see towns and cities being burned down and government leaders not doing anything, this does not bode well. But unfortunately, far too many people are doing themselves a disservice by not embracing the virtue of self-reliance. They laugh at it. And the fact is, by shielding themselves from challenges, by shielding yourself from an unpleasant task, from adversity, from thinking, critical thinking, you're doing more good, you're more harm than good. So, I've always discussed, you've got to become a nonconformist. You've got to avoid popular opinion. You've got to avoid conforming to the weak and highly vulnerable will of the majority. Where everyone else is going, go in the other direction. The masses are always sitting on their asses doing nothing, easily manipulated. But you've got to trust your own instincts, your own ideas, your own principles, your own common sense. You've got to think for yourself. That's really the big key to it. And there's a variety of things you can do, but you've got to surrender unnecessary dependence. So that you do that by identifying where you're currently dependent on other people, by taking inventory of your life, identify the unnecessary, the unhealthy situations, and resolve to start focusing in on taking responsibility and becoming self-reliant in those areas. But I'll tell you this much. You've got to work and produce results. The fact of the matter is, honorable work, hard work, is the most foundational source of happiness, self-worth, and prosperity. Your greatest asset, your primary sense of security and freedom, is going to extend from one place, and that's from your ability to produce results. And that's what self-reliance is all about. And I got news for you. And I've said this again for years, and I keep repeating it, all right? Flat on out, all right? It all comes down to your ability to produce results. And this is why I've said, unless you can connect the dots between cause and effect, unless you can start a project and get it across the finish line, unless you can set a goal and actually achieve it and go through all of the humps and the hurdles and the obstacles and the stress points and everything in between and get that thing accomplished, intentions don't mean squat. They don't mean anything. You fundamentally, we have to be able to produce results. And I promise you, you can't go down to the supermarket with a bag of intentions and try to buy a steak dinner tonight. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I don't know why it's such a hard thing for people to understand. And this is why I've always talked about the idea that you can produce so much more. See, if you just eliminated procrastination and self-doubt and uncertainty and the bullshit that's been programmed into you since you were a kid, okay, and if you just had straight line thinking from point A to point B and executed and took responsibility and acted with initiative and did all this stuff, you would accelerate every outcome in your life. Guaranteed, bottom line, money in the bank. There's no other way around it. That's going to happen. But the shenanigans that people play in their lives, and the back and forth and the in and out and the indecision and uncertainty and the lack of initiative and it's amazing to me. And the fact that I'm hearing that people are upwards of watching 10, 12 hours of programming a day right now, it blows my mind, some of the numbers that I'm reading. But anyway, let me continue on. Two more points I want to reinforce. You've got to take advantage of educational opportunity. You've got to educate yourself every day. The deal is this. Those who have the lowest levels of skill and the weakest capacity for constant updating of those skills will find themselves uncompetitive, unemployed, highly dependent, and absolutely worthless. They'll have no value to society. Now, I promise you this. We are moving into the world, and you've been lied to by every one of your big business leaders, the CEOs and so forth. I have never gone down this route, and you've heard me say this for those of you who've been with me for a number of years now, okay? Artificial intelligence is going to take jobs. It's not going to replace them. It's not going to create new ones. Just a perfect example, just look what happened. You look at Microsoft, what they just did. They laid off 350 people who wrote copy, did their advertising, wrote all the stuff and everything else, and they're replacing it with artificial intelligence, nothing more than robotics. You want to take the time? Look at Wall Street. What's happening there? Bye-bye all your brokers and all your folks on the floor. Just about 80% of your trades right now are done by quant computers. They don't need human beings. They're being replaced by them. This is going to go on in every industry, from medicine and so forth. I can't wait for it to happen in law, quite frankly. But the fact of the matter is, I promise you this, I have been saying for years, and it's why the mission is to inspire, promote, and celebrate excellence. You must commit to excellence, and more importantly, you've got to shoot for preeminence. You have got to be playing the best possible game, because when it comes time for organizations to hire people, I got to tell you, if there was a tolerance for people being mediocre or apathetic or being late or anything like that, it's gone now. And as these stores and stuff open, it's the A players are going to get hired. The people with good attitudes, with good work ethics, who are highly responsible, who are respectful of clients, who are respectful for the business owners and don't rip them off and take good care of them, and so forth. It's just the way that it's got to be. But fundamentally, mediocrity is for meatheads. It's over, and average is over. Mediocrity is over. Mail it in, any of that type stuff. You'll find yourself completely irrelevant. The last, and this is perhaps most important, you've got to be free from debt, and you've got to find a way to get rid of this crap as quickly as possible. I would advise to negotiate, and I promise you this much: you got to if anybody who does have debt right now, you're in a good position. For this reason, these mortgage companies, they have to negotiate. Credit card companies have to negotiate. Car companies, they have no choice. The damage that is about to be inflicted on these guys is beyond comprehension. In 2008, there's no even comparison. What's about to come down the pipe is truly going to be amazing. We haven't even seen the damage that's going to be caused. But the fact of the matter is, okay, if there's ever a position to renegotiate down on terms or on the actual total, now is the time, and I'd be very aggressive with that. And that's true on everything. That even includes your mortgage. But the deal is this: the person, the community, even the country, and I emphasize country, who owes money is a servant, is a slave to the person, to the corporation, whoever it is who lends them money. And never are you less free than when you're already in debt. And listen, I go back to this whole privacy thing. These knuckleheads that are playing on TikTok, this is a ByteDance company which is owned by the Chinese government. Not by a Chinese company, owned by the Chinese government, okay? And we have over 1 million downloads a day, and young kids are putting their pictures and everything, every single piece of personal information up there, and even more and more adults. I am amazed at the absolute stupidity of people as to what they do with some of these social platforms and the freedoms that they're willing to give away and the privacy that they willingly give away to sit there and dance in front of a stupid camera. It is truly amazing to me. But fundamentally, never are you less free than when you're in debt. I promise you, these big companies, they already have been stealing your privacy for years and so forth. You've got to be very, very aggressive and play a strong offense. And it's going to come down to self-reliance. But freedom isn't free. It derives from the rigorous ongoing deployment of noble virtues to include discipline, accountability, commitment, perseverance, good old-fashioned hard work, and I promise you this, a heavy saturation of self-reliance. You got no other option. So the solution to everything that is going on is not to sit back and be overwhelmed, suck your thumb and bitch and moan. It's not worth your time. You've got to play a strong offense and realize that it's not even just a success skill anymore. This is a survival skill. This is just the reality is the way things work. Now, I've extended my stay here a little longer than I normally do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wish you guys well. I'm going to get out of here, and I'll put the recording up online. But you got any questions or anything, find that Billions for Bankers. Read that. Read that as soon as you possibly can to get an understanding of where and how and when things went south, because everything that's going on is connected to the banking system in terms of how the rest of all the different infrastructures and everything else wind up getting manipulated, wind up basically going south. And you'll find a lot of the DNA and the footprints directly connected to that document. So it's worth a read. I highly recommend it. All right, guys. Totally different call. Hope you enjoyed it. And more than anything else, I hope it made you think. These are, I don't even consider them rants from a madman. This is what I believe is going on. What I see is the truth. And I choose self-reliance. I choose not to be dependent. I choose my own thoughts. I choose what I believe is right and wrong. I will not be told, nor will I tolerate someone telling me that I've got to do this or got to do that, or this is the way things are, so forth. Because since you're a kid, man, you've been lied to, told that you're too tall, too short. If you're a woman, you can't do this, or you're a man, you can't do that. If you're black, you're worth this or worth that. It's all of this is just utter complete nonsense and stuff that doesn't exist at all. And unfortunately, this stuff continues to get pushed down our throat. And the only solution, honestly, is to become educated, is truly to educate yourself. And that's the last thing that these people want. Anyway, take good care of yourself. Appreciate your support, and I hope some of the stuff makes sense. Hopefully it made you think. And if you disagree, I'd love to hear about it, but do your research first, because if you send me a note and say I disagree, I want to hear why. And I've got no problem. Send it to Gary at Everything Counts. Love to hear from you. All right, guys, take good care.